cut down the news and all the other stress and then just go to a land far away from time and space and let go. Huh? 37 years. I mean, Last of the Summer Wine. And the thing about it is, because it's about old people, the actors are old, which is good news for them in the terms of their careers, but they die off. And so, I mean, over 37 years, you get different actors in the series because when I say so-and-so passed away, he did. We didn't just kick him off the show.
When did you discover it?
When did I find this show? I don't know. I've been watching it for a few months now.
They pass away before they can write them out of the show?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
They come back sort of, they are referred to in later episodes as so-and-so used to do such and such, you know. They had fun with it. A couple of the guys, the actors in it, buried in this little town where the thing was filmed. They became so fond of it over the years. It's Yorkshire, so it's northern England that the rest of England likes to make fun of, and the way they talk and their customs and everything else, you know.
Yes, some Yorkshire. Yes, some Yorkshire.
You know where? What?
Cats. Flat cats.
Yeah, they wear a few of those.
Yeah, it's a Yorkshire clothing company. All right, we're gonna go home.
All right, we're ready to go.
Hello, hello. Am I on?
Should be.
Am I coming out of the boxes? Yes, okay. Welcome to the monthly general meeting of Apple CIDER, Rochester's Apple Computer and Other Device User Club. We meet on the second Wednesday of each month at 7 o'clock, more or less, at East High School. Our website is applecider.org, and that has directions on how to get here and links to our video streaming on YouTube, shopping on Amazon Smile, and board information in the minutes, which are not quite up to a long time ago yet, but that's all right. Our board meeting is the following week, the third Wednesday of the month at Irondequoit United Church of Christ, and directions to that are on the website also, and anyone is welcome to visit, and don't you say it. Okay. What else am I forgetting here?
Saturday, green apples.
Oh yeah, Saturday Green Apples at Bob Hoey's home, and there's an RSVP phone number on the Apple Cider homepage, and that's around 2 p.m. And then around 3 p.m. We have a Q&A session with Bob and with Steve when he gets there from Soundbites, which he does on Saturdays. Any other ideas?
Well, we're probably the area where weather may cancel the meeting.
Yeah, right.
We
and
were
in
almost
fact,
looking at it today.
there are links on the CIDER homepage to two local TV stations, and I did check them today. A couple places did cancel evening activities, but not the city school district. Are we all set?
I think so.
All right, then here's Steve.
Alrighty, so a lot of websites were doing news and review for the best of 2019. And I had a link here and I lost it. Let's just do the Apple news. So Apple themselves did some interesting things. You may have started seeing all of the shot on iPhone TV commercials they're doing. And there's some really amazing video that are coming out. They're all shot on iPhone. What I get a kick out of is at the very bottom of the tiny print at the end of the commercial, it says edited on other equipment. So yeah, it may have been shot on an iPhone, but then they put it into Final Cut on a Mac Pro and did a professional editing suite on it. Just to clean it up, yeah, yep. There actually was, there have been some shootouts between the new Mac Pro, who was it, iJustine against, what's his name, Justin something, using Premiere under Windows. And they set them both up to edit the same video. And who could do it first, who could do it best. They had a panel of judges. Thank you, Charlie. And it was interesting that some of the judges liked one person, some of the judges liked the other persons. Each person liked a little bit about the other guys. And my feeling is it wasn't really a Final Cut versus Premiere shootout. It was Justine's editing habits and Justin's editing habits. So, yeah. But they put together the same, $40,000 editing workstation with $6,000 monitor. So, yeah.
I just saw on the internet they had, Apple is trying to get people to submit iPhone movies. And
Yeah.
the top 5 are going to be presented with awards and stuff.
Yeah, so Apple is accepting public submissions for this, and somewhere down here there was a little uproar about them because you basically are giving Apple the rights to broadcast your video, and so some people were mad about that. Well, obviously they need rights to your video if they're going to broadcast it. You're submitting it for consideration to be broadcast. Yeah.
It's not that that you're not going to make anything out of it, of course.
Yeah.
They're giving money and prizes.
Yeah, there was also some early concern that you weren't going to get paid for the prizes. You were just going to get your name in the prize. Yeah, so here it is. You retain your rights to photograph. So by submitting your photo, you're granting Apple a royalty-free, worldwide, irrevocable, non-exclusive license for 1 year to publish, modify. So the sticklers on copyright were a little upset about that, but that's often what happens when you submit something for publication. They need all those rights to publish it. We also saw some really interesting things in the home automation thing starting to happen. Right now, there's sort of 3 major, four, home automation systems. You've got Zigbee. There's another one that starts with an X. Yeah, I think that was it. And then Google and Amazon controlling those home automation technologies. And then Apple pushing their own HomeKit. And none of the 3 will talk to each other. So when a company makes, say, a smart doorbell, they have to decide which of the 3 or 4 protocols to support, or all of them. That's why you see some doorbells work with Amazon, some work with Google. Hardly anything works with Apple. Apple's security is a little tighter than everyone else's, then we think that's part of the problem. We really hope Apple's going to come out with a HomeKit hub. So right now, you can turn an iPad into a HomeKit hub to control all of your home devices. It would be really nice if they had a wireless router that had all that built in. The HomePod speaker has a lot of the HomeKit control built in, but it's not as integrated as the other ones are. And so when you typically end up picking a company, so you get a Nest camera, when that's Google, so now not suddenly, you sort of tie yourself into that one ecosystem. You need to buy all Google devices so they talk to each other. And if you get an Amazon Ring, you got to buy all Amazon devices so they talk to each other. So we used to joke about the wonderful thing about standards is just there's so many of them to choose from, but it does mean that none of them talk to each other. So Amazon, Apple, Google, and Zigbee are all getting together to form a universal standard for home devices. So every device will be able to talk to every other device, and it won't matter whose camera you get, and you can mix your cameras and your thermostats and your speakers, and they'll all talk to each other. We're kind of hoping that Apple's going to come out with a home security camera that is really secure. The problem with a lot of the third-party cameras is that there's very little security behind them, especially the really cheap Chinese counterfeits, where they have open passwords, they don't update for bugs, They don't, fix problems that are found. They just sell you the camera for $20 and that's the end of it. And almost every week we hear about another breach where someone figured out how to look at cameras. Although on the other side, we also hear from inside the companies. Ring had a problem a few years ago where they were sending video to a contractor to help with object detection. That's a person, that's a car, that's a cat, that's a dog. Turned out that contractor was in Ukraine, and people were mad about that. And then most recently, Apple and Google and Amazon were all found to be doing the same thing with their audio clips. So when you ask one of the devices to do something, those audio clips can be set to contractors for further analysis if the thing didn't work. And so now you may have noticed when you set up a new device, Apple added a Siri statement where you can choose to allow your Siri recordings to sometimes maybe go to Apple so they can help work out why Siri didn't understand what you said you wanted. That's kind of the most annoying thing about any of the voice-activated assistants, and it's become a meme on all the TV shows where someone's trying to yell at an assistant to do something and it doesn't understand them, and so it's becoming tricky now for privacy reasons to know what's happening on your end, what's happening at the other end. We've talked a lot, several times about the Wyze camera. Is it W-Y-Z-E? Yeah. They have a $25 camera that is really, really good. And the security, the security works really well. They just had an accident where one of their test servers was published without a password. And so it's possible that if you were using Wyze cams to store video on the Wyze cloud, that someone else could have seen them.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them at home.
Yeah.
What I do with mine, I have the memory cards in mine, 32 or 64 gig memory cards, and I don't use their cloud.
Yeah, if you put your own memory card in it, then it never uses their cloud, and it never leaves your house.
Almost like an intranet, you keep
Yeah,
everything at home.
keep everything in your own intranet. Yep.
But the price, I mean, you can't go wrong with
Yeah, for $20.
1080, night vision, audio.
How long do you get on before,
I'm sorry?
how often do you have to check or change the card? Or when does the card fill up?
32, 6, well, I don't know, I've never had a problem.
He's never had the card fill up.
Yeah, I think I've never had it fill in. It's not that
They may have a
you're only doing small
table
captures,
here.
like 6 seconds of video at a time. Oh, all right. It's just motion capture,
There you go.
so it's not continuous.
So on a 32 gig card, if you do HD, you can get 2 days. If you do SD, you get about a week of continuous recording. The normal recording is 12 seconds. It detects motion, records for 12 seconds, and then stops because it doesn't need to be recording continuously.
Can that be changed the settings or record longer?
With an SD card, yes. They give you free cloud storage for 14 days rolling. So on day 15, the oldest one is deleted as newest one comes in. And if you want more than that, they have a relatively low-cost subscription with unlimited storage for keeping video longer and for changing the time that it will record.
But I found their software is pretty good. On one screen, give you the quick tip. On one screen, I'm looking at my outside camera video for the front door. My wife is sleeping on the couch. Okay, let's wake her up.
It has two-way audio, so you can hear what's going on and you can talk back.
I'll be sleeping at your house. And then I have one of the dining room, and I'm looking at the catfish, so I always know when she's out of food, and then the outside, the porch, for the back room. So you can see all four, and you click on any one if you want. So it's pretty good for $20. You can't go wrong.
That they're plugged into AC, but they have an interesting thing where you can daisy chain them. They come with like a 10-foot USB cord, and so you can daisy chain 2 or 3 of them together, and only need one power outlet to get several of them along in a row.
And they're gonna be coming out with the battery-powered unit. They're coming out in the first quarter of the year, I think, with a digital scale. It has your weight, it'll do your body mass, and you can do more than one person, and it keeps track of more than one person. Okay. Keeps track, my wife says, not going in her bed.
Yeah, most of the cameras now and camera systems are really working with their what they call machine intelligence to figure out this is a person, this is a cat, this is a dog. In fact, the Google Home system has a face detection feature in, so you can tell it who the face is, and so if someone walks up to your door, your Google device will say, Michael's at the door, even before they push the button. You may have seen the TV commercials for the Ring doorbell, where it scares away thieves because they see the Ring doorbell and run away. Or you can talk to them while they're trying to steal your package and say, you're on camera, don't steal that package. But that sort of brings up the point of this alliance is that the Wise software only works with Wise cameras. You can't mix and match different cameras. And Ring software only works with Ring cameras. And so there is a standard, was it ONIV? Let me see if I can find it. There is a generic standard that a lot of cameras work with. Thought it was ONIV, but that's not quite the right. ONVIF. And so if a camera supports the ONVIF, that's a generic standard already that many software support. So we have a program we use in our office that talks to a bunch of different cameras from different companies. But we've seen companies like Ring and Nest sort of want you to only buy their stuff. So their software only works with their stuff. But we are seeing some advantage or some growth. So like the WiseCam works with Amazon and Google, and it works with a cool website called If This Then That, where you can string together commands so that if the front door camera sees somebody, turn on the smart porch light. There was one meme I saw where if motion is detected, arm the Claymore Roomba, turn on the lights, and open the door.
Yeah, because they sell bulb packages.
So Wise also is branching out into other things. They have smart light bulbs now.
Before I leave, at any meeting or board meeting, rather than call home, I just bring up the Wise and I turn off her reading light on and off 3 times, so she knows that's me and I'm coming home.
Yep. You can also get a smart plug. A lot of companies are selling these smart plugs too. So you plug whatever appliance you want into that plug, and then you can control it. How many people remember the old X10 motion light switch things, where you used to plug into your lights? When I was a kid, that was the big thing. We got a bunch of those on our lights, so that when we were on vacation, the lights would turn on and off automatically.
Yeah. And this sense thing, they're regular just contact switches, like you can put it
Yeah, so you can put it on a door or a window.
freezer. I know when the freezer door is opened or closed. It gives you what time that these things happen, open and close.
And especially Wise are just so inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's surprising how good they actually are for as cheap as they are. The one other thing that I see a lot of these companies do is they don't have a web viewer. You have to use their app on a smart device. So we actually use a product called SiteHound, and they have an app, but they also have a web player. In fact, they're sort of pushing their image detection and recognition technology, and they don't even care about the camera half of it. They work with hundreds of different cameras with the OnViv format. They'll detect what's in your picture, They've got a demo where police cars driving down a street capturing every single license plate it sees. And a lot of police are already using that type of technology. And then it automatically looks up that license plate to see if there's any outstanding warrants.
Look it up automatically without you putting the information in?
Yep. You're just driving down the street and the camera sees the license plate and looks it up. Our son got hit by that. He
If you look at live CD, they show you how it works right on live CD, that new,
yeah,
with the police thing.
yeah.
And the guy said he just looked at the screen and says, yep. You know, pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So Apple also got a bunch of Golden Globe nominations for several of their shows. How many people are subscribed to Apple TV Plus? Got a couple, yeah. Remember, if you bought a new Apple device after September or something or other, you get a free year of Apple TV Plus. So when you register your device to your Apple ID, it's automatically added to your account.
In fact, if you have a problem, if you have an issue with an iPhone or something like that, and you have to get it swapped out, and as long as you give them money, and I said I wanted the Express, so they send you a replacement one, you send the old one back.
That counts?
As long as I gave them the $500 in advance, it's considered that I purchased a new device. So I got a year of Apple TV, and I get the money put right back on my credit card when I send the old, when
Yeah,
I send the old one back.
Yeah, advanced shipment, the companies will put a hold.
As far as that's concerned, I gave them money. So I got a free year. That's cool. Just keep that in mind if you're gonna send somebody, go with the Express, your money comes back.
Yep. M. Night Shyamalan's new show Servant has started, and that also got a couple of Golden Globe nominations. 16-inch, we talked about that last week. Someone's got one. So what we're seeing now is it is CES this week, and 175,000 people are there. Yeah, more than 1,000 speakers. You have no hope of seeing everything. I know that several companies were doing live CES streaming. Let me see if Twit has their live stream up. And so we're starting to see a lot of the best of CES stuff coming out on the blogs.
They even had cars there, didn't they?
Yeah, a lot of cars are showing off their autonomous, driver assist. So that's part of the problem. If Tesla hadn't called it autonomous or auto drive, it wouldn't be the bad press that they're getting. That we hear there's stories in the olden days about when cruise control first came out. People would set their cruise control and then read a book, not understanding that they still have to drive. It's just cruise. So this is advanced cruise control, lane assist.
Yeah. And then the first one went to court with the Winnebago. Remember the Winnebago?
They set cruise control and went in the back to make a sandwich and crashed.
And she sued and she won.
Because the software or the Winnebago didn't say you couldn't do that.
Right, that's right. Wasn't in the manual. Stupid, but that's the law.
Yep. So a lot of things this year. There's a lot of the similar things. Big TVs are getting cheaper. TVs are getting smarter. Smart locks. So there's a lot of smart home appliances are being added. Let's see.
Like the face of the refrigerator, you tap it, you can see what's inside.
Yeah, there's a neat refrigerator that has a semi-transparent door. And so instead of opening the door and standing and your mom yelling at you to close the door, you can see what's in the refrigerator through the door. And the refrigerator knows what's in there and can tell if you're low on milk and will send you a text at work to remember to get milk. So things are getting smarter and smarter. Well, it can watch you put it in, so maybe. Yep. Looks like Engadget has got their list of CES things coming out too. Several of the companies are doing do their best of, and it's just kind of interesting to go through and see. Oh, medical robotics. Okay. Oh, a way to test for Parkinson's. Oh, watching your gait, and it can detect subtle changes in your gait as maybe the precursor to Parkinson's. So there's a really cool things. A lot of times what we say about CES is these are the things companies are making that you might see by this coming Christmas or maybe next Christmas. and we sometimes think that companies will show something at CES to gauge interest to try to raise funds before they even start to make it. And those are the ones that take 2 or 3 years to come out. Smart toothbrushes. There was a smart fork last year that can detect how many bites you're taking and how long between your bites. Was it Mom used to tell you to chew your food 100 times or whatever it was? Yeah. A smart bath mat, so that it has a pressure point on it, so it can rate your posture, it can rate your stance, it can rate your gait. So a lot of these things we're seeing coming out may not be a product that comes to market eventually, but we are getting really cool stuff, and someone has to lead the way and develop the technology we're going to see over the next 5 or 10 years. So you were talking about cars. So Toyota has the Toyota Woven City. Mercedes, there's a cool Mercedes. Their ATVR. Yeah. There's usually, let me try to find television. There's usually somebody that has the biggest TV. I think last year it was 180 inches. Yeah, so 8K TVs are getting popular this year because a lot of people already have 4K TVs. In fact, if you buy a new TV now, for probably the last couple of years or so, it's hard not to buy a 4K TV. So they have to come out with something even better yet. So now we've got 8K TVs. And movies are being shot at higher resolution now. So that's always been the catch-22, is that there aren't enough movies in 4K to justify buying a 4K TV, but we're sort of past that now. Most movies are available in 4K. Most things are shot in 4K. We got a kick out of Peter Jackson when he shot The Hobbit. He was using stereo red cameras that were 18K per camera. And so he's got his 4K version of The Hobbit out, and he's ready for an 8K a re-release as soon as 8K becomes popular, because he was using 18K cameras. So it's more and more, bigger and bigger, faster and faster. There was a company, was it Samsung, that had they were calling it the window, and it was literally like the wall of your house where your giant window would be, was a screen. So you could, with a camera on the outside, actually see the outside like it was a window, or you could feed a movie into it, or you could feed other scenes into it. That's a common trope in a lot of sci-fi about what is on your screen. It's what, you're stuck on a spaceship in interstellar space, so let's put a forest up, or let's put an ocean scene up. And being able to put that stuff on thinner and higher resolution devices is starting to get big. Yeah, the rolling or folding screens are getting to be bigger. One of the things we've seen over the years is TVs have gotten bigger and bigger, and it's been it's been furniture. And so a lot of people want to hide the TV until they're actually using it. Or you have a media room now, and so here's one where the TV lifts up out of the cabinet when you're ready to watch it, and when you're not watching it, it folds back down and it's just furniture. Yep. Yeah, so we're seeing these fold-up TVs, here, 60 grand. And that is a little bit like the folding phones that a couple of companies have already started trying to ship. Trying to make a 180-degree fold is really hard, but rolling it up might be a little easier. A few years ago, it was projectors and movie screens, and so when you wanted to watch a movie in your home theater, the screen would descend out of the ceiling, and then your blinds or drapes would close, so you could watch with a projector. But nowadays, we're seeing for the cost of a projection system like this, 75-inch television is $600-700. So it's less than the cost of trying to put together something like this. Although with the school projector like this, there's actually a two-way communication, and you can write on the screen, and it's captured and recorded through the projection system. So there's still going to be stuff for that. Oh, giant screens there, yeah. A lot of restaurants now, especially fast food restaurants, are using TV screens instead of menus or just written words, because then they can show advertisements. I think the last 2 times Shirley and I went to McDonald's, I was going to order their special new sandwich, and just as I get ready to order, the screen rolls off into an ad. No, I wanted to order that thing. That new special thing. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. But that's becoming more popular. Even outdoor screens now. A lot of the McDonald's have giant TV screens outside, which is a little disconcerting at night because they have the regular menu, which is fine. But then when you go to order it, the screen goes white and your order pops up to verify they heard your order right. But now there's this blinding white screen at drive-through at night, and so because TVs are getting cheaper and cheaper, the OLED technology is getting less expensive, so we're seeing more devices using OLED. The next big thing is micro LCD. As we're seeing smaller micro LED, smaller and smaller light-emitting diodes that can make up a television picture, and we kind of see that a little bit with the Retina screens, where with the high-resolution Retina screen, you are using 4 screen dots to make 1 pixel to look at, and that's why it's so sharp and crisp, because they're so small. And we're starting to see that on televisions now. Yeah, most of the watches are already OLED. And so when you can show pictures on your watch. I'm not sure about playing video. That would be really small on a watch. Yeah, a little bit more RAM, yeah. Although the Pico projectors were popular a few years ago, so you could fit a projector into a watch, and then you could make it a 10 or 100-inch screen with this tiny little projector instead of being this big thing to carry around. Charlie. FaceTime on the Apple Watch. I know you can do messaging, text message. I haven't tried to do FaceTime. The answer is yes. FaceTime audio, but you can't do FaceTime video because there's no camera on the watch yet. Maybe next year. Technically, yes, but it goes over the internet instead of over the phone systems. I don't think it works video 2-way, or even video 1-way. Let me search Yeah, nothing on video. So right now, on the watch, it only works for audio calls. But theoretically, that could eventually happen. So you have a screen without a camera, then you could see the other end, and they don't get to see you. Or, like most people, you put a piece of tape over the camera on your device, so no one can see what you're doing anyway. There was there was a scene in the second Alien movie where Ripley finally decides she's going to go back to the planet, and so she calls up the company guy to say she's going to go, and it's the middle of the night, and he just answers the phone, and he's there in his bed and rubbing his eyes and what's going on, and it's become so routine to have a video phone call that nobody thinks about it anymore. Has anyone else have any news that they have heard of lately? Anything interesting?
I read something online the other day. There was CES going on. They went through several years, like maybe each year they took one of the things was going to be the hot thing and never panned out, and what the different things were. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so a lot of the news sites have gone through best of the year wrap-ups. There was, do you remember what site it was from?
It was PC Magazine.
PC Magazine
I did a couple of their.
did one on the things at CES that never came, that were so popular at the time but never made it.
Yeah, my wife had three.
Oops. Yeah, a lot of companies are coming out with hubs like that. Do you remember the brand? Yeah. So as thin as Apple makes the MacBook, you can now get a little bit thicker, but get all your ports back. Yep. Yeah, I've got a little docking port here that's got a dozen ports on it that I use. Yep. And you get all your ports back.
Does it attach to the dock or just sit on it?
Let's see if it says if it attaches or sits on it. Dun, 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 dun. It looks like it just sits on it. Yeah. So, in general, a docking station is basically on your desk with all your stuff plugged into it. So, kind of like the picture they've got here. And then when you go off on site to do something, you pick your computer up and walk away with everything. Then when you get back, you just set it down and plug your one USB port in. So right now, they show the one USB port going into the dock, and then everything else comes off of that, so you don't have to plug everything in at one time. We used to sell a lot of the henge docks where you would actually set your computer down into the dock and it mated to all of the ports. That was kind of interesting for a while.
Well, that dock you're talking about, plug into the USB-C and power it. It's like they have your power cord plugged in.
Yeah, it had power pass-through as well. Let's get down where that picture was. There we are.
Into the power.
And then and so there's a power cord into the dock. So then the power comes into the dock and then into the computer.
You plug it in a power cord with the Mac.
Yeah.
And that one also has, I think, like a extra battery
Yeah, 8 hours of extra battery. Oh, and you can get it with extra storage. So if you want 256 or even a terabyte of storage in the dock, so you plug your computer into it and suddenly you've got more storage, like an external hard drive, all in one box.
I think you can get your own, put your own SSDs in there, so you don't have to buy it.
Yeah, it looks like, well, as you buy it with no storage, then you can add your own in.
What is it?
That's kind of neat.
349, and that's the 13 inch. Later on this year, they're coming out with the 15 and 16.
Join the wait list.
It's like, green light cable.
Yeah, join the list. We're going to be making one. Put $1 in the green light jar. Like the swear jar, you got the green light jar.
Yesterday I saw him put it up the cable in my backyard.
Oh, nice. We're at 100% in my neighborhood. Oh, so yeah. So that's kind of neat. So it's just a little U port if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, green light is investing $100 million into Buffalo to get green light going.
Yep.
And they got parts of Rochester that look like the guy with one eye on a dartboard.
One of the things we continue to hear about Greenlight is that a lot of their expansion plans are thwarted by Spectrum employees. So some neighborhood, you can't get Greenlight in that neighborhood, and you look at the map and it says easements required or something like that. And that's because a Spectrum executive lives on the corner and won't allow Greenlight to dig a trench through his yard.
Is green light all underground now? I didn't think so. I thought it was all the poles.
Well, a lot of it's above ground. Then they have to get permission from either Frontier or RG&E, whoever owns that pole, to run it on the pole too.
I live in Webster, and I know that Webster gets about 600,000 franchise fees from Spectrum every year. You think the towns would woo green light in, saying there would be more franchise fees?
Yeah, we are. So well, do you know if that's television fees or internet fees?
I think it's television,
Yeah, Greenlight doesn't do television. It's only internet.
so there is no incentive for the towns to.
And almost, it's a disincentive because when you sign up for Greenlight Internet, you cancel your TV subscription so you can get TV on the internet.
But if you cancel your Spectrum cable, those franchise fees drop.
Well, maybe, I don't know, but then the overall subscription base is dropping, and then so maybe the town sees a drop in revenue, and so it's catch-22s. Yeah, George?
Just people may not have thought this through. I got green light at one point, and if you have program and you switch to green light and you stop programming, you no longer have your email address.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest thing about switching internet providers is most of them will let you keep your email address now, but some of them don't. So you may want to get an iCloud address or a Gmail address, something not tied to your ISP now. So if you ever do want to switch internet providers, it's hard to tell everyone your new address, and you know, if I'm changing tomorrow, then my old address is gone, and so you need that time. In fact, sometimes you need a couple of years, because that magazine subscription that you bought 2 years ago that now expired, that goes to the address you don't have anymore. It's almost worse than physically moving, because at least the post office has a centralized change of address.
So that's exactly what I did. I anticipated green light coming on my neighborhood, so I created my own domain, so I didn't have to mess with it. But you could do a Gmail, and I kept it for a year in parallel, and in about 6 months, 95% of the change had taken place, and then there were some
Yep.
outliers.
We had.
Every once in a while, look at it, sure, something's there.
So just think about that.
We had a custom. services, the cost of each service is lower. But I don't need phone, I don't need, television, in some cases, you just need internet.
But I'm talking about my mobile phone, I have Spectrum Mobile.
Yeah, now Spectrum has
So in order to
mobile.
get the lower price
Test.
for the Spectrum Mobile, I have to get the internet. So while they're saving a lot of money
Test.
with Verizon, I'm kind of stuck with Spectrum Wi-Fi. I could always add you, $50 a month to use that, still use my phone bill.
So you use Spectrum for your home service instead of Verizon then?
Yeah, now,
Spectrum Mobile uses the Verizon network, so
Okay, consumer.
so whatever deal is.
Consumer cell phone is
There's no taxes, they add another tax, like 45 for each line. So I'm paying less than $30 a month for that.
I have cellular. 5 smartphones are Verizon network.
yeah, we've had a lot of people switch over to T-Mobile. We did it at our office, and we've got 7 phone lines on our office. Oftentimes, the smaller phone companies are more aggressive in their pricing because they know they're the smaller guys. Yeah, cheaper or giving you better deals on newer phones. I know Consumer Cellular has a deal for seniors as well if you're over 55.
Yeah, but consumer cellular and track phone, you get like 1 gigabyte. It depends if you want to use.
Yeah, if you're a talker and need phone minutes, or if you're a web surfer and need gigabytes.
T-Mobile has a $7 basic plan for $55, which is cheap.
I've also heard a lot of good things about Mint Mobile for as low as $15 a month. That you just get a SIM and put it into your current phone. And I think that was for 10 gigs. Oh, 3 gigs. Yeah, most of the phone systems these days, it's unlimited voice and unlimited text, and you pay for data because that's what everyone is using up their phones now. Yeah. Yeah, each networks do it can do it a little bit differently too. Yeah, so whose network in the back end um, is bigger or wider? In fact, one of the TV commercials it talks about that. Everyone says they're the best. The best this, the fastest that, the most this, and they're all right for the one specific thing they're saying. So we have the most coverage. We're at 99.8%. Well, the other guy's at 99.7%. So we are messed. But here in Rochester, Verizon always had an advantage because when Rochester Telephone stopped doing cell phones, Verizon bought all their towers, and so Verizon was able to double their towers almost overnight. So they have an advantage in coverage with the towers here in Rochester.
I always thought that was amazing. Frontier didn't go to Johnson to get bandwidth themselves.
Frontier has been buying landlines all over the country. Why? People are getting rid of their landlines and going to cellular. Yeah, and so yeah, a lot of the industry insiders are forecasting Frontier is going to go bankrupt because they're not making any money on their landlines anymore. Yeah, dig up the wire and sell the copper to make a little money.
Are most places or businesses have landlines with Frontier?
Businesses are well, legacy businesses are frequently Frontier. But we're seeing a lot more companies are now going to voice over IP. So their telephone system goes over the internet instead of going over copper phone lines. Somewhere, eventually at the end, it has to go into the plain old telephone system so the person at the other end can get it. But if you're going from voice over IP to voice over IP, it could stay on the internet the whole way. Yeah, your Google phone number with voice over IP, or Vonage, or Ooma, or a bunch of different companies are doing voice over IP. In fact, Time Warner is voice over IP. All right, George.
I was thinking of the new spam law, that $10,000 per person for the robocall thing.
Yeah.
Today, my wife she had 3 calls come in, people purporting to be from Social Security office and the fear thing,
Yep.
saying that her Social Security card was just used to buy weapons on the Arizona-Mexico border, and they just weren't letting her know. She never picked up the phone, but that happened 3 times, the same call today. So they're getting into the fear thing now.
Yeah. Well, and part of the thing is that the laws almost don't matter because the spammers are already breaking the law. So now there's another law they're going to break. It doesn't matter. What? Right. If you can find them, if they're in America, if you can find them. So one of the things that the FCC has been pushing is a way to stop the spoofing. How many people have gotten a phone call from Apple support or from Microsoft support? And that's what your call ID says. And that's illegal, but it's easily done. So the FCC is trying to find ways to force or to verify that the person calling you is the person that the call ID says. Unfortunately, every phone system in the world has to change for that new technology. And well, the ISP has to be able to do it, but then when it goes through Ogden Telephone Company, or when it goes through Trumansburg Telephone Company, yeah. There was a really interesting case a couple years ago where a guy in Miami was actually caught. He was doing 1 million phone calls a day, and it was a surprise that he was actually in America. And so the FCC fined him $30 million, and he made another day's phone calls and paid the fine. And it turned out that he was selling fake timeshares. See, that's the other half of robocalls and spam. The content of the message is usually also fake. So you get a phone call about selling you a timeshare. It could be a fake timeshare. So you put down your money and it doesn't even exist. And what if I want cheap drugs through the email? And then you pay your money, and it's fake spam. So legitimate spam versus fake spam. And so it's tough. And the bad guys don't care because they're already breaking the law. There was a what was it? Microsoft in cooperation with Indian police raided about 30 call centers in India last year, and were able to arrest a couple of dozen people who were making fake tech support calls. And we almost wondered that because they had the pattern down, it was legitimate tech support companies that are getting hired by bad guys to make fake tech support calls, or the guy who does tech support for Dell during the day will go off shift and then start selling his own tech support and send the money to me instead of to Dell. And so they arrested a couple of dozen people, and robocalls dropped for about a day until everyone else picked up the slack. Yeah. So it's worthless to try to trace a spam call because they're spoofing the number. And so you try to call them back and report that number. It either doesn't exist or it's somebody else's number. One of the things that was popular for a while was spoofing your exchange. So you get a phone number that comes in the 671 exchange. You think it's a neighbor. Well, no, they're spoofing that. So then that phone number that they call you from is somebody's number. And we've had people said that they get angry phone calls from people about stop calling me. I didn't call you. Well, my call ID said you did. That was a bad guy who was lying. It wasn't me. They just randomly picked my number to make it come from. We often talk like a postcard in the mail. You can put anybody's return address on a letter, and there's no verification along the way. And you can send out a million pieces of junk mail offering cheap drugs, and people send you money and you don't do anything about it, and your return address isn't on there, so the cops can't get back to you. So it's very tough to catch any of these, and they're trying to do it with technology so that calls can be traced. But part of the problem is then when it goes overseas, then you have to get the FBI involved. You have to get the police and jurisdiction in the other countries involved. I was so disappointed when I learned that Interpol, which you hear in the movies all the time, that just means international police. I thought it was some great fancy organization. No, it's just the international police. But yeah, the bad guys are already breaking the law, so they don't care if there's another law they're going to break. And meanwhile, the rest of us are suffering because we're getting too many robocalls. You can't answer the phone. And so you wait for someone to leave a message, and then you call that person back to answer their question, and they don't answer the phone because they can't trust who it's calling from. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Started keeping a lot of these fake messages. So here's a message that came from Amazon, and there's a problem in my Amazon account, and I got to click here to do it, to keep my account active. Well, if you point to that and don't do anything, this is actually going to a company called story3ss.aceofbladesbarber.com. Now let's look at this one. No, so that one is really Amazon.com. Let's see, this one is really Amazon.com. So they are trying to trick you into thinking this is really Amazon. And so two of the links are real, and the link they want you to really click on is fake. Yeah. Yeah, you click on this top one and you go to Amazon, so that must be real. I'll click on this one. Charlie? Yep. Yes. Because this is not really text, this is a web page, and it's using web code. It, yeah. Apple gets hit a lot, where you gotta unlock your Apple ID, and some of them are pretty good. These links down at the bottom could be real, but the one they want you to click on is fake. So this is from x.co. And then so you go there, and it would look like the real Apple page or the real Amazon page. So you type in your credentials to fix whatever's wrong. Now they've stolen your credentials and will run up all the money on your account. Yeah, a lot of word processors will try to be helpful, and if you type an email address or a web address, that turns that into a live link. So when you send that document to someone else, they can click that link, and that was being helpful. And then the bad guys figured out that they can take that helpful system, usurp it, and screw everybody up. Getting fake invoices is common now. Yeah, it's very easy to spoof these addresses.
Yeah, it would put the bad address first, and then, highlight it, and put the new, address. Unless you go ahead and totally deleted that, it will remain the old link.
It doesn't update its link. Yeah, most of the time, the fake messages are obvious when you stop and think about it. So here's an invoice I got from PayPal that I bought something at Walmart. Okay, through PayPal. Yeah, and what's interesting is that most of these links are real, except this cancel and report. That's not that. So that's going to Libraries, alllibraries.org, which could be a legitimate company, but someone has broken into their server to put up a fake page and hijacked their server. Yeah. So I bought a Walmart instant gift card for $859. Uh, okay. And I was charged 760 euros. What? Yeah. So most of the times, if you stop and think about it for half a second, it's obvious that it's fake. But most people don't think about it. They're trained to obey signs, and it says something wrong is wrong, so I better go fix it.
Like if you look at the one above it, the sounder, it says
Yeah.
have been awarded.
Yep.
If you don't,
I've been awarded 800,000. Oh, right, I can go on that vacation finally. And all they need me to do is wire them $500 finder's fee or something like that. Yeah.
The one problem, I have to keep telling my wife, get the email, it's not a real email.
Yeah.
Because she keeps asking me, is this really, something wrong with my account? I said, no, there's nothing wrong with it. Get the email. If you want to find out, you can go to the actual website of the company or the business.
Right.
Do not click on any link.
So if you get a message from claiming to be from PayPal, thinking there's a problem, go to your browser and type PayPal.com yourself and log into your account yourself. If there's a problem, it will tell you. And most likely there isn't a problem. And because there's so many fake messages, real companies can't send you email about problems. Real companies can't call you about problems because it's all fake. And what's interesting is they haven't picked up on postal mail. Most of the time when you get a postal letter, it is real, because there's a physical cost in sending postal mail. And the bad guys are all about no cost and or very small cost and huge rewards. So they're not going to bother sending you a fake postal letter because that costs them too much money. Right, and mail fraud is there's a lot of investigators for mail fraud. Right. If you get something in the post that wants you to mail something back, that goes back to a post office or post box or somewhere that they can watch to see who comes and picks up the mail.
How do you do it on the tablet?
Tap and hold usually on a link. So normally when you tap on a link, it will go there. If you tap and hold, it will show you the destination of that link without actually going there. Alrighty. Yeah, I think we've sort of merged into Q&A too. But, Not specifically, but probably. The HomePod's primary purpose is to connect to the internet and play your Apple Music subscription. It will play music from your iTunes library using the AirPlay feature. Right. And so your HomePod and your device have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. But if the HomePod can't see the internet, then it really gets upset about it. Even though you don't want to do anything internet related, it really, really, really wants to be on the internet. And join the hotel Wi-Fi, yeah. Yep. Yeah, you could have turned on the hotspot on your phone and then had the HomePod join that Wi-Fi. You would have to have done, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it will play through AirPlay from your other devices. Yeah, that handles like half of the radio stations in the town, and radio.com is like the other half of the radio stations in the country. iHeartRadio is another one. Drink the Kool-Aid, join the service. Yep. Yeah, and it does. Yep. All of the smart devices are listening all the time for you to say the trigger word. Theoretically, they aren't recording all of that. When you say the trigger word, then it throws it away. Although with Amazon, you can log into your Alexa account and see all the recordings that it has captured. The way it seems they were all set up is if there's a problem either recognizing your voice or understanding your command, then it sends that audio to a person to listen to figure out what you meant to help the algorithm work better. And so that's how the new privacy terms of service thing pops up when you set up a new device with Siri on it. It will tell you that that's what it's going to do. What I've done on my phone, it's what's kind of interesting. So I have Hey Siri turned on, but it doesn't work if the lid is closed. And on my iPad, it's turned off to listen, and I have to push the button to make it activate. So a lot of people are starting to switch that service so that you have to physically push the button to make it activate. But then that does kind of limit the usefulness somewhat. So you can't holler across the room, I want to do that. Yeah, there have been a lot of cases where law enforcement subpoenas Amazon and Google and Apple to get those recordings. So if someone's ever killing you, you want to yell out, hey Alexa, Bob is killing me. Yeah, Ed, you had it then, George. So when you have your phone look at a QR code, generally what it does is read the code, and the codes are typically web links, and it will take you to that website. You'll get a button that says OK to open in Safari. But to actually embed something in your wallet, I'm not sure. Yeah, the wallet app does it, not the camera app. You have to start in the wallet app. You don't get a picture. You tell it to scan the QR code. It should open up a camera window in the wallet app. It's the OS version. It's not the phone version. Let's see. If it's too small, it will have trouble reading it. Passes, yeah. And then there's a button that says scan code or add a pass.
Yeah, I screenshot mine all the time. Yep, I just screenshot it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in the wallet app. Open the app, click on the plus button at the top of the passes section. Yeah, so I have my Wegmans app in here and I have my Cinemark. So you have to go into your passes first. You can't have a credit card displayed, you have to go to a pass. And then there's an add button. Yeah. And there's at the top of the plus button at the top of the passes. Yeah, it keeps trying to add a credit card.
I have the latest version of iOS on my phone, and if you just go to your wallet and go right to the bottom, it says edit passes.
Oh yeah, there it is, and then scan code.
And it says
So that's where you delete passes you have, and then there's another one that says scan code to scan a QR code. Thank you, George. So right at the bottom, so the instructions have changed since whenever this. Yeah, it brings up the camera app so you can scan a QR code. Right, so movie passes or airline tickets, things like that. Yep. And then there's always that person in line. In fact, there's been TV commercials about it where their phone battery dies, or they got to boot and log in as they're trying to show their pass to the attendant, and everyone behind them in line gets starts grumbling. Yeah, step aside, do it later. Alrighty, last question. Yeah, George, that's right.
just a quick piggyback on the earlier discussion. I keep my iPhone next to my bed on the table at night. If you keep it face up, it'll respond to Siri. If you put it face down, it won't.
Yep. So face down, it won't respond.
My question is, when I open my mail on my iPhone, I want to see unread messages. So I always do whatever I do, and then I go to that menu and close that one. Sometimes it comes back to unread messages. Sometimes it comes back to all mail. Is there a setting I can set to force it to go to always to go to unread messages?
Read your messages more. Maybe. Let's see. Apple. Let's go iPhone, mail, always show unread. Um, oh, that's if it's not showing. So there have been issues in the past that messages that you have read are not marked as read, and so your mail app can say you have 50,000 unread messages. That's a different problem, yeah. And because that's a more prevalent problem. That's all I'm getting as a result on my search hit. So here we go. How to view only unread messages. Mailboxes. Edit. Turn on unread mailbox. All right, let's see if it does that. So a lot of times there is a yeah, okay, I've got an unread mailbox. So you can turn on the unread mailbox so that in your list of mailboxes you have unread. Can you drag it to the top of the list? Yeah, you can drag the mailbox to the top of the list, and maybe when it's at the top. Yeah, when you're in the edit mailbox list. Yeah, that's interesting. It should do. And those are the worst kind of problems when there's no consistency. Yeah, kinda. What the heck are all those settings mean? Oh yeah, so George also had a question that he's having trouble sending email to people on Roadrunner, and he gets a message back that sort of doesn't make any sense. But what we think is happening is that Roadrunner is using a blacklist. Um, a lot of websites will use not websites, email companies will use a blacklist to watch for known spam as a way of stopping spam from getting through. And there's a website called MX Toolbox that among the many things it can do is check the known blacklists. Oops. FEK, yeah, there we are. So we test the blacklist, but this only tests 101 known blacklists, and the one that the message is coming from in George's bounce error is not on this list. So what we think is happening is that somehow his email domain got put on a blacklist, and then so Roadrunner's using that blacklist and not delivering his mail. Yeah, the company Roadrunner is using for blacklisting. Yeah. Yeah, most of the mail services have that. If you send more than 20, 40, 50 messages at once, it won't go through. Or if you send more than 2 or 300 a day, it won't go through. It assumes you're sending spam and turns off your email. Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. There's somebody claiming they have a brand new one.
Yeah, well, this isn't brand new, but it's the latest model. It's a 3 terabyte.
So it's the tall model, not this.
Yeah, it's the tall AC model. Yeah.
This one here.
Comes with the Apple Mac.
That's right. It comes.
So the time capsule, it was a really great device that we really liked. It's a wireless router, so everyone needs a wireless router in their house. But it's also a network hard drive. And with the proliferation of laptops, you don't want to have to remember to keep plugging in your backup hard drive to make sure your backup is up to date. So having a network hard drive is very handy to be able to back up with your laptop wherever you happen to be in the house. Since Apple discontinued the time capsule, we've had to start selling other brands. Ed, you bought one. Was yours the Buffalo or the Synology? Buffalo and Synology are probably two of the more well-known brands of network drive. That works really great, but there's a lot more setup involved because it's not an Apple device. So you have to go in, you have to make users, you have to create shares. It's much more setup. Once it's all set up, it works just the same way. Your computer backs up wirelessly over the network. But because Apple controlled the time capsule and the Mac and the OS, they could just make them all talk together really easily. Yeah. We kept hoping that they would add the HomeKit hub to the time capsule, and instead they discontinued it. There's still hope that maybe they'll come out with a HomeKit hub that's also a Wi-Fi hub, that's also a camera store. So for your Apple security camera, that can be where it stores. But we'll see. Yeah.
Like it's going to seem like a 13-part. I have two external hard drives that I use for time machine. Keep one in the bank, keep one at the house. Swap them out randomly. I've now got accumulated around 300 gig of video. So I have this video sitting on the external I have at the house now. What is the best, fastest, safest way to copy that video onto the other external? This way I have video on two externals.
Yeah, connect both hard drives. So the question is, how do I copy a lot of video from one drive to another drive? Connect them both to one computer and drag it. That's about. There are if you want to clone the entire drive, so it erases the one drive and puts everything on it. There are two programs that are popular for that: Carbon Copy Cloner and Super Duper. But yeah, if you just want to add more stuff to what's already on there, then drag and drop.
You have an existing folder on both externals. You add one file to one folder. Next time you go to copy that on the other one, just take the one file one and go to copy the entire folder.
It'll copy whatever you drag. So there actually there's another backup program I use occasionally called Backup List Plus for that. One of the things I've run into on the desktop, yes, I did mean Backup List Plus. When I do a drag and drop copy on the desktop, if there's any problem anywhere along the way, the copy aborts, and you have no idea how far it got. So in a case where I want to do a file-by-file copy, this is a free program called Backup List Plus, and it will do file-by-file copy, and it will do incremental copies. So the next time you want to copy, it will only copy the things that changed. Yeah. And the main difference between Backup List and Super Duper is that it doesn't do a whole disk. It will if you want it to, but it's intended to do a folder of stuff at a time, not a whole disk. So the question is in Final Cut editing, does it matter what camera you use? No. The main difference are the additional features that Final Cut adds for more professional level video recording. There are a couple of articles I've just found, in fact, several of them from different photography websites, on the differences between them and what each one is best for. You might want to read through a few of these before you spend the $300 for Final Cut. It is more geared toward professional film editing, professional commercials, movie trailer, professional type stuff. But at $300, it's a lot cheaper than the Final Cut Studio used to be a couple of grand. Yeah, it's very different than iMovie. Yep. See how that works, yeah. Alrighty, let's take a break. We've got some goodies. So, Bob? The Apple email app versus something like Thunderbird or the Apple, the email program or the email service. That's the email service. Yeah. Yeah, it started out as Mac.com, and then it got renamed to Me.com, and now it's iCloud.com. My home address is a Mac.com address. Well, because they typically use the email from their ISP. You go to iCloud.com and sign up. Yeah, if you have an Apple ID, you can create an iCloud.com address. And click on the mail button to create a new mail address. No, if you haven't created an iCloud.com address, you do not have one. You must create a unique address when you sign up for iCloud.com email. You can have up to 5 aliases too. Well, wait. Do you mean the Apple Mail program on the computer? Yeah, I use the Apple Mail program with my. Well, you need to because they're two different things. I use the Apple Mail program to read my Roadrunner mail, my Jesse Group mail, my Google mail, my iCloud mail. So that's a mail program that you can read any number of mail addresses. Yeah. You can also use Thunderbird. You can use Sparrow. There's several different mail clients that can be used to read mail from any mail service. Yeah. Alrighty. Looks like we've got everything set up for our next section here. Alright, let me make sure this doesn't go to sleep. Yeah, try logging back in there again, Ed, and see if it comes back. No? Rats. Well, if anyone else figures out how to do add passes on an iPhone 6S with iOS 13.3, it works on a 7, it works on a 10. Do you have the wallet app? Let's see if you have the add. Yeah, if you swipe up so you get all the way to the bottom, um, can you? Is there an add passes button or edit pass? Yeah, and on my 7 there is too. So there's something wrong in the OS or the phone that it's not showing it like it's supposed to. All right, so my window is showing, but I don't actually see it on screen. I'm going to quit this and relaunch. Everything was working a minute ago, and then it broke. Don't you hate when nothing changes and it stops working? All right. Does it? You can't add a pass. But on the 7, it is. No, because if you have nothing, there has to be a way to add. Right, yeah, the plus sign is adding a credit card. There should be another button to add a pass. Yeah, that's something. Although I'd be worried about deleting the wallet app. It'll probably delete all the cards you have in it, and then you got to put them all back in.
But I don't know if the new one on the App Store might work.
Yeah, that's something to try.
Download it again. Get 2 wallets.
All right, so we're going to use this window, which means I got to change this window. Yeah.
On this one, I can do it on the 12th. There's a boarding pass that takes us all in one place. Find the apps and start collecting your passes.
But if you swipe all the way to the bottom, there should be an edit.
At the bottom of this, there's a scan code section.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to find, is that scan code. So it's on the 7, it's on the 8, it's on the 10, but
It's an 8 with 13.
but this
With a 13.3. I think it's the problem is the 13.3.
Oh, 13.3? Oh, I think it's got 13.1 on this.
but I have 13.3 on my 7 and it works. So it's something between the phone and the OS.
This is 13.13.
So that'd be something to try. Upgrade that phone and see if that scan goes away.
You can find it on here.
You've got an 8 here, and he's got the same problem.
This is an 8, but it's on 13.13.
And now suddenly my phone won't switch to mirroring. So we'll do it from the iPad. The settings are the same, they're just laid out a little different. So a lot of people don't recognize or don't know the settings app. It's very similar to control panels on the computer. And in the settings app, let's see, I think I'm in night mode. Let me go back to day mode so you can read it better. No, I'm not in night shift. Yeah, let me turn off night shift. And dark mode. There we go. Go to light mode. There we go. Now you can see it better. Yeah, it's the dark mode is, well, let's start with dark mode. Dark mode was a feature they added in iOS 13. They added it to Mac in 10.14. And so normally your screen is bright white with black text and black lettering. And this is actually left over from 40 years ago, probably, or maybe longer ago than that. When the first Mac came out, it was a paper white screen with black text on it. Before that, most of the monochrome PCs were either amber or green. I always liked the Apple II with its green text on a black background, and some of the PCs, especially compact, had amber text on a black background. And that was one of the big features of the Mac when it first came out, is it was a paper white screen with black text, because that's how we were used to seeing paper. Well, now we have this new dark mode, which basically reverses it. No, I have to do it on here, not on the computer. And so dark mode will, let me get rid of everything else here. Dark mode turns things dark and will then theoretically be easier on the eyes because you don't have the bright white coming out at you all the time. And it's different, and so different is cool for a lot of people. I've often wondered if we started out with black text or with a black background and white text, would we now be all excited about light mode coming to our devices? And so that dark mode setting is under display and brightness, where you can switch between light and dark. And one of the neat things you can do is there's an automatic setting where you can have it automatically go light until sunset, and then after sunset it goes dark. And so what that does is during the bright day, you'll get your light mode, and then as the day gets darker and darker, you don't need to have the screen so bright, and then it will shift into dark mode when you're at night. So that, yeah, a lot of car screens do that too. There's a similar feature called Night Shift that has been in there, been in the OS for a couple versions now. Night Shift actually changes the color of the screen, and it probably won't do much. Yeah, it doesn't do anything on the projector. Um, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that the bright blue in white light is what wakes you up and keeps you awake. And the theory is that our evolutionary ancestors needed to wake up in the daytime so that they could avoid the predators. So that's why we wake up when the sunlight comes in at us. And because so many of us use our devices at night, before we sleep, before we go to bed, you have trouble going to sleep because of all this white light. So you can actually set your color temperature to be warmer, so it shifts more to the yellow. And so it actually, if I push mine full warm, it gets really yellow on screen, but you don't notice it after a little while because your eyes get used to it. But then that means there's not so much white, and so it may not keep you awake as much, and it may help you go to sleep because you don't have so much white light. Now, everyone is a little different, but there have been different studies on how this works. So the night shift changes the color shifting, and the actual dark mode versus light mode changes the entire screen. One of the other options we have on display and brightness is how bright your screen is, and there's a little slider there. And how bright the screen is can make a big difference on the battery life of your device. The brighter your screen, the shorter the battery life. So, having your brightness down, to a half or 2/3 is usually bright enough, but then it can save the battery life. And then the other option is your auto lock. Auto lock is how soon it turns off the screen when you. I'm going to reboot my phone. That seems to be the thing tonight. How long before the screen lock comes on? And when you're using your phone, when you stop using it during that idle time, this is the time you set for when does it lock and black the screen out. If you have that set too short, then it may black out while you're like reading a web page or reading an email. If you have it set too long, that uses more battery. And if you have it set to never, then your battery will be dead in a few hours because it never goes to sleep, so it's always running the screen. So you can play with that different setting to see what works for you, whether you want to have it too short or too long. I find on my phone I have it set for 2 minutes, and I kind of wish there was a 1 minute option because the phone, you look at it and then I set it down. With the iPad, I tend to use it more. It's kind of interesting. You have a watch so you don't look at your phone as much. You have a phone so you don't look at your pad as much. You have a pad so you don't look at your computer as much, your laptop as much. You have a laptop so you don't look at your desktop as much. So on the phone you have a 1 minute option. On the iPad, it looks like 2 minutes is the lowest. Yeah, so it's slightly different on some OSs too. Charlie? So the question is a couple fold. Whether you put the iPad to sleep with the power button. There we are. Oh, I've got my phone and my iPad on the screen, so we can do them both. Let me go down to brightness and settings here. Whether you have the auto lock versus sleep. So auto lock puts it to sleep. So pushing the sleep button is basically saying sleep and lock now. Auto lock is just a timeout for how long it takes until it actually does lock. So my phone actually has a 30-second option as well for the phone itself. I'm going to set that higher so that we can see the difference. Yeah, on your screen you can see the difference between the warm and the less warm, I guess. Do you have it set to a schedule? That may be overriding your change. Right, so night shift cuts down the blue and makes the screen a little more yellow. Light mode versus dark mode is a dark background with light text, and or a light background with dark text. Right. So the brightness, if you have light mode, more pixels are on, so it takes more power to light the screen. So there, in many cases, dark mode can save battery life. And then the other half of your question about having apps open, there's been some interesting arguments back and forth. Having an app open doesn't necessarily use power unless that app is doing something in the background. So Skype has been one of the notorious apps. You leave it open in the background, it's constantly waiting to receive a call and draining your battery. But calculator, you have it open in the background, it's not doing anything. So it's not taking power. If you're having a problem with an app, quitting all your apps is often a good troubleshooting tip. But then relaunching every app uses more power to launch the app and get it running. So there tends to be a catch-22 about having, if you have a lot of apps open that you use all the time, it uses less power because it's already open, and bringing it to the foreground uses a little less power than launching it from being completely off. But programs you use every once in a while, in fact, a lot of people, if when you double push your home button, is it going to do it for me? Yeah, you double push your home button, you may not realize programs that you've had running, way back, and you haven't used them in a week or a month. Go ahead and quit those because you know you're not using it. Right, if they're not doing anything, they're not taking power.
How would you know if an app is running in the background?
Yep, there's a battery setting that we'll look at. So if we go down to the battery setting, this actually came about as a response to the problem with the iPhone 6 battery fiasco that hit the news a few years ago. As your battery ages, the capacity lowers. So when you have a brand new battery, say it's got a 10-hour life, and in 2 or 3 years, it's only got a 5-hour life. So it's lost 50% of its capacity. So instead of 100%, what gets it tricky is 100% charge is now 5 hours because your capacity is down to 50%. Eventually, your capacity will be a minute or two. And so it says 100% charge and it turns off almost immediately because your capacity is near zero. And so what would happen is the phones were crashing because they didn't have enough power to do what someone wanted it to do. So in a system update, I think it was around OS 10 something or other, Apple put in a check that if the battery capacity was low, it would slow down the speed of the processor so it didn't draw so much power. everyone was happy their phones stopped crashing. And then someone did some testing and figured out the phones stopped crashing because Apple slowed them down. And that became a conspiracy theory that Apple slows your phone down to force you to buy a new phone. Well, no, you take your phone in and they run a check and find out your battery's weak. At the time, a battery replacement was $79. Most people ended up just buying a new phone anyway because it was an old phone. Your batteries usually last 3, 4, 5 years. As a result of the public outcry, Apple dropped the battery price to $29 for about 2 years. And then they just, well, it's been a year ago now, they raised it back up to $50 for a battery replacement on most phones. And they added a feature to, let's see, only on the phones, not on the pads. They added a feature called battery health. And so the battery in my iPhone 7 is weak. And I'm getting a service battery message, and it's telling me that my capacity is only at 85% of its original design. And I have an option to do peak performance capability, which means it will crash when the power is low, or it will turn that off and stay running when the power is low by slowing down the processor. So now there's a switch. You can tell it to do that. What that also lets you see now is you can see your capacity, you have a little better idea of what your health is, and you can decide if you want to replace the battery or not. The other thing it shows you, I'll get to you in a second, George. The other thing it shows you in the battery window now is your charge level, charge versus usage, and then how much power each app has been using. So on my iPhone, Personal Hotspot is using a lot of power because I was out in the mountains in Canandaigua today and where there was no internet, so I was using my Wi-Fi hotspot. And on my iPad, it was FileMaker was using the most power because that's my database for work. So this shows you what apps are using the most power. So if there's something up there that you don't remember using or something you were using that you didn't know used a lot of power, then you can quit that app to stop the power consumption. So that's one of the tests that we do to see is your battery draining rapidly because something is using too much power. Yeah, double tap your home button and it will show you all the apps that are running in the background. You would see Skype in your battery list, draining your battery. And when you double tap the home button, you would see Skype running. It shows the activity in the last 24 hours, or you can say over the last 10 days. That's a different screen. Correct. This is all of the apps you have running. Right. If it's using a lot of power, then it shows in the battery list as using a lot of power. Those are apps that have been running. It could be, you don't know. Yeah. Double tap the home button. And that tells you all the running apps. Yes. If you see it there, it's running in the background. Right, you go to the battery section to see what apps are using a lot of battery. And so you can see your trends over the last 24 hours or the last 10 days to see what apps are using a lot of power. My phone, so over the last 10 days on my phone, as podcasts are using the most power because that's what I have been, I listen to podcasts on my phone while I'm driving in the car. So if you tap on a specific app, now this is telling me that podcasts have been 1 hour, 23 minutes on screen, meaning it's the foreground app, and 7 hours and 27 minutes as a background app. So maybe that's what you want to know, whether it's in the foreground or the background. Well, if it's in the background, it is running. Right. 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 It's on and waiting for you to bring it to the foreground. It depends on the app. You go to your battery list and see what apps are using the most power. And then you can see whether it's using power in the foreground or power in the background. So I hadn't realized that my podcast has been running 7.5 hours in the background, because usually my phone is locked, plugged into my car. So because I don't have the screen running when I'm driving, so it's 8 hours of the last 10 days I've been listening to podcast. Apps Deleting an app has no bearing on power. Having an app on your device has no bearing on power. Right. So if you have maps in the background, if you have location turned on, it's keeping track of your location. Yeah, location. Well, then when you want to use the map, you got to remember to turn location back on because you want it to know where it is. When anything is using your location, you get a little arrow icon in your menu bar. So yeah. Yeah. Where did you find that? Or is it a third part? Is it a third party app? I don't see it under battery. The other option that the phone has is something called low power mode. So what that does is it stops background power hungry tasks like downloading email or doing other things in the background, so you can still make phone calls. And so by cutting down all the extra stuff, your battery will last a little longer so you can make phone calls until you can get somewhere where you're going to charge it. Location is in a different setting. That's under privacy. Right. So location, you can turn location on, and then you can give specific apps access to your location only when using or all the time. And this came about, again, because a lot of apps started using too much battery because they were always using location. And the fact that things like Google Maps or Facebook uses your location all the time to track where you are. So almost always now it's set to while using or you can also set it to be ask. And every now and then, another new feature in OS 13, every now and then it will pop up and say, this app has been using your location for a while. Do you still want it to? And you, oh my God, no. So what? No. One thing Facebook did is they added Bluetooth tracking. So when Apple started tightening up location tracking, Facebook added a Bluetooth tracker. So now Facebook wants your Bluetooth turned on so they can track where you go when you walk by another Bluetooth device. And so that's also under privacy. I can say Bluetooth. So here are the here are the programs that I've allowed use my Bluetooth. And we found that out when the little notice popped up and said Facebook wants to use your Bluetooth. What the hell does Facebook want my Bluetooth for? So it can track you. So I say no. One of the scariest things that happened to me, but logically you can understand why, when we were driving home from Florida a few years ago, we drove by a billboard for an air show at some town. And I go, oh, cool, when's the air show? Oh, it's next weekend. Damn it. And then, so when we got to the hotel that night, in my Facebook feed are ads for that air show. Because my location was on, because I was using the maps, and it knew I drove by that town, and it gave me ads for the air show. So that's technically a good way to use ads. There's an ad for something you're near, but it's a little disconcerting that it knows. Yeah. Yeah.
Could that also, like, if you have your microphone on, would that affect it as well? Like, let's say your location is off, but your microphone for Facebook is on?
Um, yes. So you can turn your microphone on. You can allow things to have your microphone. Good point. I don't need Facebook to have my microphone unless I do a live recording.
Right.
Then it will say I need access to your microphone. So it'll probably they probably will add that to the this device is using this service. So it's using your location. Do you still want it to? It's using your camera or microphone. Do you still want it to? Google Maps does the same thing. It tracks everywhere you've been, and it sends me a map every month saying, here's everywhere you went. You went to 3 unique places, and it shows me a chart, a map with a trace of everywhere I went, which is kind of neat to look at, but then a little disconcerting when you realize what they're doing. You can if you turn Find My on, and that's under Apple iCloud. When you turn Find My on, location has to be turned on as well, so it knows. But you can choose to turn Find My on or off. In fact, they've shortened it. It used to be Find My iPhone. They've kind of shortened it to Find My. We used to say Find My device because it's iPhone, iPad, iPod, Apple Watch, AirPod, Mac. So Find My any device. And that actually does two nice features. If you misplace your device, you can go onto another device and find it. So did I leave it at work? Did I leave it at home? Oh, it says it's at home. Oh, it's left it in the car. And it also does something called activation lock on the phones and the tablets, and now they've added that to the computers. If someone steals your device, they can't get in without your passcode. Great. So bad guys used to just erase the phone and resell it. When Apple added activation lock with the Find My around OS 7 or so, you cannot activate an erased phone without the Apple ID and password it was originally set to. And so what we saw is a huge drop in iPhone theft because the bad guys knew they couldn't resell it. Or you had to resell it and then disappear before the person tried to turn it on again. And we have gotten quite a few calls at our store saying, I just bought this phone on eBay, and there's an activation lock on it. Can you remove it? No. Call who you bought it from and get them to remove it. Well, I don't know who I bought it from. Look at your receipt. Yeah, we don't want to get involved in that. Yeah, one of the things, so that they added a Yeah, they added a new, in OS 13, a new Find My app. So it will find where all your devices are. And one of the other things, too, is share my location. So your friends that you define can see your location. And typically, spouses will share each other's location. So you can find where somebody is. We have heard several cases about cheating spouses get caught because, you call home, hi, honey, I got to work late tonight. And then why is your phone at that other woman's house? So be careful if you're sharing location. They also just added a neat feature in the mapping program. When you have a map, you can now share your ETA with someone. So say you're driving to go somebody's house, you can share your ETA with them. And if there's a delay, if the route changes, if you get delayed, they get notice that you're delayed. So that's part of the mapping program. When you plan a route, there's a send to the map. So there's a lot of excuse me. There's a lot of settings under Apple ID, which is the very top section. And this is where you set up your Apple ID and what services you want to sync between your devices. Your iCloud syncing lets you sync your photos, your contacts, your calendars, your mail between all your devices. And that's very handy. So if you add a contact on your computer, it shows up on your phone. You put an address in your iPad, it comes to your computer. And so generally you would want to have all these settings be the same on all of your different devices. And at the top, you have your iCloud storage. And we continually complain that Apple only gives you 5 gigabytes of free space. iCloud storage is often used for backing up your iDevices. If it was 5 gigs per device, that would be a little better, but most people have more than 5 gigs of stuff on their device they need backed up. So a lot of people end up paying the 99 cents a month for the 50 gigabytes. 99 cents a month isn't too bad for 50 gigs. Although there's this conceptual barrier now that the next step up is 200 gigs, but that's $3 a month. That's a lot of money. Not really, but okay. That's yeah. Where do you buy your coffee? The other thing that iCloud Space is used for is your photos, and you can tell it to put all of your photos, and we've talked a little bit about this in the past too. You can tell it to put all of your photos on the cloud with iCloud Photos, which is usually okay for your phone and your pad. But your computer back home, I've got 400,000 photos I've collected over the last 20 years. I don't need to put all of those on the cloud, and I don't want to pay the storage space all of that would take. So the other option, Photo Stream, puts the last 1,000 photos of the last 30 days between your devices. So when I take a new picture, it ends up on all my devices. So that way you don't have to plug your phone into your computer and import your photos manually. The other advantage to iCloud Photos on my phone is I have it set to optimize my phone storage. So it doesn't have to keep all of my photos on the phone. So if I go back here and look at photos, my photos, I have a 16 gig phone and I have 22 gigs of photos. And in the early days of phones where 8, 16, even 32 gig phones, you can have a lot more photos than you have storage. So what having Photo Library turned on is it pushes all your photos off to the cloud and just puts thumbnails on your phone. And if you want to see a picture, when you tap on it, you might notice it fuzzy, but then in a second it downloads it and it becomes clear again. So that's a way to offload some of the space on your phone so you can keep more pictures on your phone. Right, yeah, you have to be on internet, either Wi-Fi or cellular internet, so it can download that high-res version of the picture. But at least you can see the thumbnail to decide what you want to do with that picture. So 50 gigs is okay. We're hoping they're going to go bigger than that eventually. A couple of the other options we don't often talk about, which are very convenient, is airplane mode. How many people know what airplane mode is? There was an interesting argument I read about. Someone thought airplane mode, you had to turn it on so you could use your phone on an airplane. No, not exactly. You turn airplane mode on and it turns off all the radios to make your phone safe to use on an airplane for other things. So you want to listen to a podcast, you want to watch a video. It turns off the radio so it doesn't interfere with the plane's instrumentation system. I've always thought that if my little phone can mess up the plane, there's something wrong with the plane. But if you're on a plane with 200 people and 200 other phones, okay, I could see a little bit of interference maybe doing that. Yeah. And your phone will use more battery because it's trying to talk to the tower that's now farther away than normal. Yeah. Because a lot of pilots now are using iPads for their nav charts. So they have an iDevice in the cockpit already for the nav charts, the service manuals, the log manuals. But 200 people in the back with their own phone too. Charlie? Yeah, in airplane mode, you have no internet connection. Right. So you could read your book while airplane mode is on. Let's see. When does it? Where does it tell me when it's due back? So right now I'm reading a book called Red Shirts. It's about a starship where the people in red shirts tend to die too frequently, and then one of the ensigns figures out what's going on and they try to stop it. Yeah. Somewhere it should tell me when this is due back, I thought. But yeah. So there it is, due in 11 days. So if I don't finish it in time, I can ask to renew. But if there are other people waiting, it won't let me renew it. So if you have airplane mode on, it can't delete it when it expires. What's interesting is there's no technical reason that the electronic library book has to expire. With a physical book, the library wants the book back so they can give it to someone else. With electronic books, the publishers put in this artificial limit because they don't like libraries. Publishers want you to buy the book. In fact, there was a big thing a couple of years ago. The book publishers were trying to get together to stop resales of books. So you finish a book and you sell it to someone, or you give it to someone else, or heaven forbid you sell it to someone else. Publishers don't want you to do that. They want that other person to buy their own copy at the bookstore. Because when you buy it at a bookstore, the royalty goes back to the publisher. Yeah. Even of physical books, libraries are limited to the number of copies they can get, even if they had the money to buy more. Yes, in your iCloud storage at 200 gigs. Well, yeah. So iCloud has a service called Family Sharing that allows you to set up a family of you and up to 5 other people to share your purchases, movies, music, TV shows, and apps. So app developers hated that because now you buy an app once and you can give it to your wife and she doesn't have to pay again for it. The app developers liked you to pay again for it. And part of that family sharing at the 200 gig level of iCloud, you have shared storage space between you. So you can make a shared photo library. I've got my photos, her photos, and then we have an our photos section where both of you can share your photos. In the Apple ID settings, under family sharing, um, I have mine turned on. Otherwise, it would say turn on family sharing. And now I can add a family member. I can either send them an invitation via iMessage. Invite in person means that person is here, and they type in their Apple ID and password directly, and then that gets added to my account. What's really handy is the child accounts, because you can create a child account with parental controls. So they have to ask you before they can purchase anything. You can limit the ratings of TV shows, movies, and apps that they're allowed to run on their device. So it's another way of helping with parental controls. You can give a child member an allowance so they can buy apps without running your credit card completely up every time they want to buy an app. Or in-app purchases was another big thing. There was a big mess a few years ago where some kid had rung up $5,000 in Smurf berries, and the parents sued Apple for letting them buy things on the Apple Store. Well, you gave the kid your password, and he just buy. Or the sneakier thing we're sort of seeing sometimes now is the with Face ID or and Touch ID before it. You know, mommy's sleeping on the couch and the kid wants to buy something. Well, just touch her finger to the Touch ID, or I can hold the phone up to her face, and it will unlock and authorize the purchase. So actually, in the Face ID settings, there's a section called what is it called? Attention, I think it is. So your eyes have to be open and looking at the camera for Face ID to work. So it makes it harder for someone to grab your stuff. So once you have a family set up, you can decide and choose what you're sharing with them. Your purchases, your storage, your location. Screen time is a setting that keeps track of how long you're using each program, and a lot of people use that for parental controls as well. Or even keeping track of, I don't want to spend more than an hour a day on Facebook. No. So you can add those family members and then be able to share the purchases with them. When you go into one of the app stores, you can see your purchases, or you can switch it to their purchases and then download something they already bought. So you invited her and she didn't respond. So if you tap on that, there's probably a way to send her another invitation, remind her again. She didn't know what it meant when she got that invitation. Yeah, she could be paying for her own cloud storage. Now, is she paying it with your own credit card? Because the family organizer, their credit card becomes the master purchase for all family members. So you put your credit card in, and the kid buys something, it goes on your credit card. Or the wife buys something, it goes on your credit card. That's by each Apple ID. So each Apple ID can buy their own storage, but through family sharing, you can share. Oh, no, well, yeah. Okay, good. Through family sharing, with the 200 gig or more plan, you can also share some of your cloud space with a family member. Everybody gets 5 gigabytes per Apple ID. Yes, if 5 gig is enough to back up your phone. If you don't have that many, then that would fit in 5 gig, yeah. That's why 5 gig is so low. Google gives you 15. Microsoft used to give you a lot more, but then they cut it back. I think they're down to 7 now. Right, the storage on the phone itself, yeah. Right, it backs up your data and it backs up your list of apps. You may have seen if you ever restore from backup or you get a new phone and it restores from your iCloud backup, um, it brings your data back. Then it gives you back to the phone, and all of your apps are black, and they all download again. So your list of apps are there. It doesn't back up the app itself, so it just re-downloads it. It doesn't, if you have photo library turned on, it doesn't back up your photos because they're already on the library. If you have photo stream turned on, it does back up the rest of your photos. In the iCloud settings, under iCloud, under Photos. So the top one, iCloud Photos, it used to be called iCloud Photo Library, and I kind of liked that name better. So iCloud Photos at the top puts all of your photos on the cloud, uses more cloud space, which often means you have to pay for more storage. The iCloud Photo Stream does the last 30 days of photos for free. Doesn't count toward your storage. Yep. The photos in your computer are backed up to your backup drive. Right. So if you have Photo Library on, it's syncing to the cloud. And that's a big important distinction between syncing and backup. iCloud Photos is syncing. So if you delete a photo from your device, it's deleted from the cloud immediately and deleted from your computer if you have syncing turned on. It's still in your backup. Everything stays in your backup because it doesn't know whether you intended to delete it or you accidentally deleted it. So backup will let you get it back. Yeah. So actually, the phone is pretty good about warning you. If you delete a photo, it warns you that it's going to delete it on all devices if you have iCloud Photo Syncing turned on. Yes, in your Apple ID settings, under iCloud, under Photos. Thumbnails, low resolution thumbnails. If there's not enough space on your phone, if your phone has enough space for all your photos, then it stays on your phone. Yeah. Correct. It re-downloads your apps. The older, right, if you have an older app, I'm pretty sure it downloads the app version that you had. Unless that app has been removed completely from the store, which we have seen happen in some cases. Uh, it would do it itself automatically. It would download those apps from the App Store automatically if they were still in the App Store, which most of them are. Yes, so that's the other option. You can back up to your computer. Yes, in that case, all of your data, all your photos, all your apps are backed up. And when we used to have big spinning hard drives that didn't make much difference, now with laptops and 128 gig drives and 56 gig drives, you try to back up your 128 gig phone, and one backup fills your computer. So that it's becoming a bigger issue, and we see a lot of customers come in where their hard drive is full, and the first thing we look for is their iPhoto or their iPhone backup. And I had a customer yesterday, had a 128 gig drive, 90 gig of it was an iPhone backup. Indirectly. So, well, indirectly, but it does it automatically. Right. So you use iTunes to back up your device to your computer, And then Time Machine backs up your computer to your external drive. Right. So the iPad will back up to the cloud or the computer, and the computer will back up to a hard drive, or you can purchase a cloud backup service if you want as well. They didn't get rid of it, they just changed it and split it out. It shows up in a Finder window. Yep. Everything that the iTunes had is in there. And George, you're going to get the last question. Yes, there was a couple of questions we had. If we go into Safari in our settings, and I'm a little annoyed this isn't on by default, you have an option to block pop-ups. And you may have run across websites that pop up, usually a malicious ad, and so you can turn that pop-up blocker on to cut down on the number of those pop-up ads that you see in Safari. In Safari on the Mac, it's very similar. What's it? Actually, I think the pop-up blocker is on by default, and you can't turn it off. Oh yeah, you have options for individual websites. Where is it? Yeah, pop-up windows. You can have individual websites be able to show some pop-ups or not. So like Apple, I always want pop-ups. CIDER, I always want pop-ups. And so on the iPad, you can also block those pop-ups and help block a lot of the ads that may be coming through, especially the malicious ads. Is it quick? Yeah. Are you talking about on the computer or on the iPhone? Yes, that's not family sharing. That's iCloud sharing. Yes, you turned on iCloud Desktop on both devices. So everything on your desktop goes to the cloud, everything on her desktop goes to the cloud, and back to each other's machines. Yes, but. So you can go into your Apple ID under iCloud Drive and turn off iCloud Desktop. What it's going to do is remove everything from your desktop and put it into a folder. So then you'll have to decide which is yours and which is hers. iCloud Desktop turns on very well, doesn't turn off well at all. So in essence, you told it you want to see everything on both desktops. Everything on both desktops on both desktops. Yeah. Alrighty. Saturdays, 1 o'clock at noon is Sound Bites, call-in question and answer. And I'm going to try to get rid of some of these windows that are open here. And next Wednesday is the board meeting at Roundacoit United Church of Christ. This coming Saturday, 2 o'clock at Bob's house for green apples. Give him a call or let him know now if you're going to come. And then next month, what are we having next month? Anybody know? Anyone remember? February. More settings. There's always more things to get into. We can talk. Yeah, yep. We can VPN. Yeah. All right. Somebody remember that. Oh, elections. We have elections coming up. Who's our nominating committee? Okay. So if anyone wants to run, you can see one of them. If you like, you can help join the club. All right. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you all next week. Or next month. Yep, yeah, you can join on the website, or we got forms here you can fill out. I forgot to mention that at the break. George and Ed had me working on problems. But I can take a check or a credit card tonight if you like. Yes, McGregor's on Empire. Yeah, if anyone's interested, we're going to McGregor's on Empire. Yeah. Well, see, that's the only reason a lot of us go to the board meeting anyway, so we can go to the after. Both.